Richie rocks.
Welcome to the Realennials Podcast.
The end. Well, for real, people that are listening on this podcast, welcome to the Realennials Podcast. We have some nice equipment today, so we may sound really good or really bad. I don't know. I'm not wearing headphones. Pat is. Oh, wait.
I am wearing the headphones.
Are we doing pseudonames? What's up? I'm going to let people pick
Richie.
No, I kind of do want to do a different name, but what?
Patrick's thinking about it and also twisting his mustache, so
I got the mustache
it's pretty
twist going
sinister
on.
looking right now.
It's not sinister. I'm just trying to move it off of my lips so I can speak and not feel like something's crawling out my lip.
I will never know. I don't know. I might grow a mustache one day, but for now, I have no clue what that would feel like. That'd be weird
It's a little weird. You get used to it, I guess.
to have hair on your face.
You just start curling your mustache habitually.
Do you use wax?
I don't. I have friends that do.
But
Travis does.
that's a thing, right? People it's like gel, but for your beard,
Yeah,
and it keeps it.
it's conditioning,
Steady.
but not in the traditional sense of conditioning, like conditioner for hair.
Mm-hmm.
It conditions it like it trains it. But I think it's called training your mustache or training your beard.
The guy that helped me tow my car today, he was cute, and he had a big like beard, and
Okay.
he wanted to talk about it because he kept bringing it up. I mean, obviously, you notice somebody with nice anything, right?
He started talking to you about his beard.
He started talking to me about his beard. I mean, it was kind of a smooth transition from the weather to how he wants to shave it off because his face gets hot, and but when he looks at it, it's really nice, and he doesn't want to, shave it off. And so he forced me to talk about his beard, but he did have a nice beard.
Interesting.
He was kind of, would you do that? Would you be like, hey, check out my...
No, but sometimes
Nice,
I do
right?
do do this. Yeah.
Another sinister hand action
And
by
people,
Patrick. He's stroking
just
his
stroking
beard.
my beard. And I think people notice that, sometimes it does just help, What do you think?
Yeah, I guess girls maybe like twirl their hair. Some girls might do something else. I'm not sure. What's been in the news? What have you been hearing about? Because just dumb shit, really.
Yeah, it's been so stupid. Okay, so Ryan Lochte and some of the U.S. men's swim team, 3 other guys, went to Brazil, obviously, for the Olympics. They medaled. And then they went out to get drunk and act a fool. And they basically did the whole U.S. drunken frat boy thing. They tore up some signs at a convenience store. So let me take it back. When news first broke of this kind of stupid story in the first place,
Yeah.
someone had went to the cops, or to the press. I believe it was Ryan Lochte's mom. This is just what I've heard. I haven't actually read this part of the story regarding
Neither
his
have
mom.
I.
But someone had gone, so purely speculation, I don't know if this is fact. He had allegedly called his mom and told her that he needed cash or something because he had been robbed by like fake cops. and had a gun held to his head and all these things.
So that's big news. Somebody gets
and
robbed.
And so his mom went like straight to the press about it, and she's like, "Oh my God, my son got robbed or whatever." This is what I've heard. I don't know that part of the story. But anyways, the part of the story that is supposedly known is that what actually happened is that they went and did drunken frat boy style, tore up this like convenience store, busted a door, tore signs down.
I heard they peed on the floor as well.
Peed in the alley out there. And so I guess they called the cops on him, and then the cops showed up and like pointed guns at him and said, "You guys are fucking up. What are you doing?" You know. And so they're like all super drunk. There's language barrier issues, but they worked it out apparently, and they gave these people all their cash to pay for all the damage that they did.
Oh.
And then the cops, they said, then the people, they paid them cash. The people that own the store, they said, "Okay, we're all good now." They gave us money. Everyone should just leave on their way. And so everyone left. But then he had called and told his mom that after it happened, and she went to the press and said that he got robbed by like fake cops, like basically a game of telephone. You know how like the story got changed a little bit?
Yeah.
Also, he's probably lying to his mom too, you know, to avoid having to tell her the truth about him being a dumbass.
How old is Ryan Lochte? What?
32 years old enough to know better, right?
He is old enough to know better. What the fuck? So I've been seeing a lot of posts on Facebook about how this is exhibiting white privilege at its finest. And I don't know, I haven't really read any of the articles yet to see what it says, but it has the air of that. Like it feels like it, because I kind of feel like that's how frat guys are too.
Exactly.
So when you hear about those frat guy antics, and Ryan Lochte totally looks the part. He's like blonde swimmer.
Apparently he's dumb as shit too. Like apparently he, like I've never watched any of his interviews, but I've heard that he talks pretty dumb, pretty unintelligent.
I haven't seen any of his interviews either.
I mean, I
haven't seen him swim at all. I've just heard about him in the news.
It's kind of a negative speculation, but that's just what I've heard. And so I can definitely see it happening. There's the other aspects of this are twofold. I have kind of two problems with it. One is that, yes, I do agree to some extent that there is what you could call white privilege involved in this issue. Mm-hmm. He or they, the entire swim team, and I don't know all of their names. Obviously, the others are not as famous as him.
No.
But he should have known better. I believe he was the oldest one out of all of them. Yeah, so I don't, when you say white privilege, you kind of have to examine it through a racial lens more thoroughly. So I'm thinking, like, what would have happened if it had been a brown person or a black person? And so if you think that, which is hypothetical, and some people might say that you shouldn't use hypotheticals in situations like this. Yeah. But if you were to do that, you could probably surmise that there is an element of white privilege.
Well, they would have let somebody that was brown or of any ethnicity, I'm assuming. Well, I don't know. I can't assume anything, but what I think is that they would have probably taken them to jail. In a different country, they wouldn't have been like, "Oh yeah, your money is good for me." They would probably have taken them to jail. I think it's because it's a bunch of white kids in a foreign country. They're already looked at.
He's famous.
And famous. They're already looked at as if they probably have money. I mean, America's a rich country, right? Any Western, like Europe is a white country as well. So if any Europeans were down there, I think they would have got treated the same way. It's just that they wouldn't have acted stupid about it. I'm just watching you.
I'm gonna grab that bottle of wine real quick off the table.
We take breaks here for wine, everybody. So I'm actually drinking tea, but it's a Friday. Let me tell you about our lives and cut out all that stuttering. This is a Friday. We're having a drink. We got our laptops out. TEDxKC is going on right now, although we're not really watching it because we haven't seen anything that's been striking. Well, wait, hold on.
We'll be able to. They'll probably post it to be able to rewatch at some point in the future, right?
I hope so. Well, yeah, because you can rewatch the 2015 one. I'm sorry.
Okay, wait. So to go back, sorry, I got to get that. And so there's that aspect of it. That could be kind of speculation. It's not. I don't think necessarily inherently a race issue in this, like per se, to say white privilege applies here. I think that it has to do with just being a rich American, famous.
I agree. I agree with that.
And there is that element of like loud, rowdy Americans traveling abroad. And so you can think of that image in your head, and in whatever image in your head is probably a particular race, but who's to say necessarily? And I think that's all that has to be said in terms of what the race issue on this particular issue. But
yeah, it's more a American thing, I think.
I would say that, and that's purely my opinion.
I agree.
Other people could analyze it any way they want. My whole issue with it is, and you may have read my post on Facebook, is that it's being analyzed way too much. Like this, I don't mind talking about it here on the podcast because of its ridiculousness in and of itself in the first place. Because there's so many other things happening. There's this massive flooding in Louisiana that's happening. Hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people, will have their homes ruined, and they have to move or.
And all I see is Ryan Lochte's stupid face on my Facebook feed, and well, you know what? I'm gonna have to take some responsibility there because I can't say that I've been to any major news site today to see that. I'm going off of what's on Facebook. And Facebook already gives me the feel that people aren't really posting what's really happening. You know, if I was going to the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or the Washington Post and reading through that, I would probably be more informed, right? But I haven't seen very much coverage on the Louisiana thing. And that's over all social media. Which I feel like that's happening in the United States. We probably all know somebody in that area, so I feel like it would be more talked about on social media, but I haven't seen it. And I don't know why. I don't know if people are just like, oh, it's flooding, we're worried about that, instead of posting about it flooding. I don't know.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think it's just insane. There's basically what people would call a massive natural disaster that's happening currently in the United States, and like people just want to talk about Ryan Lochte and what he did in Brazil. Well, it's just crazy. And there's wildfires going on in California that are also displacing a ton of people.
I didn't know about that. What's going, like, where in California? Northern California, Southern California? California is fucking massive.
I think it's just north of LA.
Okay.
This time.
But,
I mean, there's fires there all the time. So, yeah, that's kind of what I think about that. What else is going on in the news? Donald Trump, obviously the election is going on.
I just started shaking my head without saying anything. Donald Trump is in the news too much. Like, he is another Ryan Lochte. But it is more important because he's our Republican nominee candidate.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I did see something funny on Facebook the other day. It's somebody, I don't know who out of my friends, I probably should have went and been like, wow, bye. But somebody posted something about Hillary Clinton, and they posted a comment that said, support Hillary Clinton by doing the plastic bag challenge. And it showed somebody
the plastic bag challenge?
And it showed somebody suffocating with a plastic bag over their head.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious.
And I thought that was pretty fucking clever. I mean, dumb.
Is that so? What does that mean?
Clever.
What does that mean to you? That video. Explain it.
The challenge?
Yeah. What's it symbolizing?
Well, it's telling all the Hillary supporters to go kill themselves, basically.
Okay.
Like, you should just die, is what it's saying, which is pretty hostile on a Facebook. That's somebody's response to something posted.
That is definitely...
I think it's funny, but...
That is, I think, a good point that you make, because that demonstrates the hostility of your, I don't know, what some might call your average Trump supporter.
Yeah.
Maybe not a majority necessarily, but the hostility is there, and people are acting like it's not. Do you think that has anything to do with why Trump's campaign is not doing so well? If you don't know, he recently has replaced 2 campaign managers within the past 3 months.
I did not know that. So he hasn't felt like his campaign has been suffering. Why would he do that?
That is precisely the topic of conversation, because
give me answers.
There's different scenarios that could be happening. It could be, according to various news articles that I've read, I'm presuming some semblance of journalistic integrity within those. I'm running wild with speculation here. There could be that he just keeps getting mixed signals. He keeps obviously saying stupid things. I don't know, like, if you follow him at all in the news, mainly the headlines regarding Trump are Trump said something stupid, or people took this offensive, or like that's literally racist. Like the main headline regarding him every time. Like, it's regarding something that he said.
It is.
Even though, so you're saying, like, you don't really pay that much attention to him or him in the news cycle, but, like, what have been the headlines that maybe you've seen over the past couple months? Has it been anything other than that?
No, it's all been about what he's said, like dumb things he said, and remarks he said, and maybe rude things that he said, like, also maybe, a lot of things that he's done body language wise. A lot of people, they make fun of his appearance as well and how he speaks, and that's kind of fucked up too.
That's the comedy aspect of it, though. That's not the. Yeah. I'm talking about pure. That's why I specified the things that I'm specifically referring to would be like journalism, things that have some semblance of journalistic integrity. It'd
be all things he said. I haven't seen any headlines about him kissing a baby lately.
Do you follow any news organizations on like Facebook or Twitter?
I do, but I have not seen anything.
In the last couple months or something? Surely you have.
About
in
Trump?
any event, it doesn't, you should follow different, like you probably do follow some of these too. I follow NPR, CNN.
I follow them, but I really don't get on to see
BBC.
These things.
I
don't
BBC
follow
is
BBC,
huge.
but
international news. It gives you an international perspective instead of like just directly what's going on inside the US.
I really do like the BBC.
The Economist, I follow them.
They're
kind of like, they are a UK-based organization.
The Economist?
Yes, but they have really, really fascinating things that they post, that they study. Kind of think of it, that might be a dream job of mine, working for them.
Working for The Economist?
I'd have to go get a master's in economics. At least a master's.
Well, you already have a bachelor's,
possibly a PhD.
right?
Yeah.
No, that's not the only way to work with The Economist. There's got to be a different way.
In any event, I digress. What was I just talking about?
The Economist.
Trump. So Trump, he represents all of the nasty things about our country. But we've heard this, okay? So this is what we know about Trump. What I try to explore also is I listen to conservatism in terms of like talk radio. I try to read conservative articles and things that are not necessarily pro-Trump, because a lot of even Republican things that you could consider pro-Republican journalism organizations, entities, I try to listen to some of that too. So I listen to mostly I listen to a lot of talk radio. So I listen to locally, the station is 103 FM here in Kansas City, slash 710 AM, which is the same station, just depending on which, radio you're listening to. And I listen to, in the afternoons, I listen to this guy named, I want to say it's, one of them's Mark Levin, and the other guy's Dr. Savage.
That's a cool name.
That's not actually what he goes by. He doesn't go by doctor. People call him doctor. He does have a PhD, but he goes by his first name. I want to say Michael Savage.
Michael Savage.
So there are these like extremely conservative guys that I listen to on the radio, and they represent a viewpoint of purely fucked up shit. I can't even believe they like broadcast to the masses. It's insane what they talk
Here
about.
in Kansas City?
No, well, they're syndicated. So one of them is based in Michael Savage. He's based in San Francisco. And the other one, I'm not sure. I believe last time I heard him talk about it, it was East Coast, but I could be wrong. I'm not entirely sure. In any event, they're basically batshit crazy. They're old school conservative.
So what kind of topics pop up? On these
mainly the government. It's a lot of local, or not local, excuse me, that was an entirely wrong word. It's a lot of headlines, just national headlines. They'll spend some on 10 to 15% of time focusing on national headlines that aren't politics related. Right now, during election year.
Yeah.
But right now, they're all election. Like, they're trying to get the word out there. They have millions of listeners. The guys that are syndicated, not the local.
Yeah.
Millions across the country of, like...
Conservative,
just hardcore people. Followers of these people that, like, listen to everything they say. And it's just, like, pure ignorance and craziness. Like, these people look up and, like... taking information from look up to and taking information from these people, and like they spew like this crazy old school like conservative like 1950s America like capitalism is, I mean, like, I'm not saying capitalism is good or bad. It's inherently by itself neither good nor evil, which I think I've said before to you, but they do it in such a way, like, it's so crazy. They don't ever directly say that... I have so much I want to say about this right now. And
I'm listening. I'm listening.
Okay. So, they call themselves conservatives, constitutional conservatives.
Yes.
Right? And that's all they claim to only care about the Constitution. And they basically are saying that Barack Obama has broken the Constitution multiple times while he was in office, that he should be hung out to dry on federal charges in, like, dozens and dozens of cases.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and, like, I'm trying to think of a specific example that they talk about. One would be, I guess, Obamacare. One of them would argue that Obamacare, I want to say it's Mark Levin, wants to argue that by implementing Obamacare that Obama has broken the Constitution. So this is what, like, the fundamental argument of these guys is Constitution, Constitution, Constitution. But at the same time, like, they preach conservatism. So, like, what they preach is, like, it's so crazy to me because they try to preach that the Bible and the Constitution are, like, one and the same. That they're, like, they have to be bound together.
Yeah.
That is what our country is based on. Yeah, it's like, but they never say that. They say it's about the Constitution. It's about the Constitution. It's not about the Bible. But all of their supporters and everyone that they preach to and everything that they encourage is like, it's like anti-pro-choice, anti-gay marriage, like anti all these things that are inherently only bad viewed through the lens of looking at it through religion.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy hypocrisy because, like, I believe those guys, particularly the first guy, Michael Savage, I don't believe he's even particularly religious. Like, he is Jewish, but I think, is a fake. I think he's a fraud. Like,
really?
He doesn't ever actually come out and, like, preach to people. Actually, I lied because up until today, I would have believed that. But today, he read a Bible verse.
Oh, no way.
On the air when I was driving home from work. And I have to be completely honest, I don't think he was necessarily preaching per se. I think he was just trying to prove a point.
Yeah.
And I kind of got lost on the point when he started talking about he was going to read a Bible in the first place. Kind of tuned out. But I think he talked about, he read the passage and then he tried to explain it, and I was already tuned out. But in full disclosure, I'm non-religious entirely.
Yeah.
So to our listeners, if you're trying to understand my perspective in this conversation, they both do it, and they both seem to think that it's reconcilable to have, like, Christianity as a dominant religion in our society, rejecting other religions in our society, when the basis of our society within that same document, the Constitution, is freedom of religion. Mm-hmm. And so they're basically on board with keeping out immigrants that are of the Islamic faith. And it's, in my mind, a hypocrisy within their philosophy.
That is a hypocrisy within their philosophy, because they can't... You're supposed to have freedom of religion, so why would you tie the Bible to that document that says fundamentally that it doesn't matter what your religion is, and the Bible is a religious document? It could be just a historical document, but they're not using the Quran. They're not using what other religious writings are there? They're not using that stuff. The First Testament.
And so they're actually very good at being sly about it. So they will always say that they differentiate between the Bible and the Constitution. I think one of them, if not both of them, claim to say, like...
You said one is Jewish.
One is Jewish. Michael Savage is the Jewish one. Mark Levin might also be, but I don't know for sure. He's not really talked about it. Michael Savage, I enjoy listening to his show. Uh-huh. Because he's crazy, but he's very anecdotal, and he's like hanging out with like an old, very intelligent but old school and outdated like grandpa, and he's telling you these stories about it. He'll tell you stories about his life and all these things. But this is why I don't like his perspective, because he ties everything that he believes about the world today from his past, from when he was a teenager, and this dude's like in his 70s at least.
I was gonna ask you that. How old was this guy?
And so he has this idea of how the world should be from when he grew up back in like the 50s or 60s or however old he is. And that was that America that was still developing, that was still in the wrong. You know, there's still racism. It was like around the time of Civil Rights Act. It was still communism in other countries that was tied to, like, back then communism was tied to terrorism the way terrorism is tied to Islam today. You know, it's a false connection. It is a false. It's created for us to put together. And so that's at that time they sold that to the American people, and the American people grew up like ultra patriotic. That's what these people are. They grew up hands over their hearts at the Pledge of Allegiance every single day and at the beginning of class. And the fact that people aren't doing that today is a travesty. And it's destroying our country. That's how the guy talks.
Well, I think people are growing up that way right now, and I don't know if it's because of. I mean, that's the way America wants you. You know, I think that's for the masses. Patriotism is for the masses, and to the point where people follow it blindly. And they're not questioning things. Like, I obviously believe in in my country. I love being here. Thank you.
I
know the government's
do
listening.
too.
But at the same time, that doesn't stop me from questioning things and figuring out if that is something I want to go with or not. And so I question a lot of things. I love conspiracy theories, not because I don't necessarily believe every single conspiracy theory, but I will entertain it because logic plays a part here. I mean, your gut, if you don't think something is true, don't go with it.
Another interesting aspect of that whole argument and the divider within it.
Yeah.
Not to entirely interrupt you, I'm sorry, but it comes to a very good point in terms of like, so you said logic,
yeah,
which intrinsically is tied to truth or what can be proven, in other words, and that is intrinsically tied to science. And then there's that argument between religion and science that can rarely ever be reconciled as well, or where these people are preaching to the masses, claiming to be on the side against science for the most part, even though, I mean, there's a lot of gray area in there. One of them is actually has a PhD in entomology. That's why they call him doctor. So he has a really great understanding of cellular biology, for example.
Of like a hard science.
Yeah. Entomology is not entomology, but plants.
Oh, botany.
Botany. And so that's how he gets people, is like, so he's like, I know science. I'm a PhD in science. And the climate scientists are wrong. I have a PhD in science. This is why you should listen to me.
Oh, Lord.
And it validates what all of these ignorant fucking people across our country believe, because this guy has a PhD in some scientific field, and
they take his words.
It's not botany. I apologize. He studied in the study of specifically, I think, diseases or plant diseases. I think plant diseases specifically. So he studied, like, he understands very well about how diseases work in general, but I think he specifically did his PhD on how they affect plants. So in a form, he studied diseases, like cellular biology, how diseases affect that, and also plants and botany.
Oh, so he's a specialist in that. But how does that affect his knowledge on the rest of science if you're so specialized in that science? I mean, obviously, you have to have a basis for, like, the logic of science.
Right. Okay, so science in general is specifically a tool. Science uses a specific set of tools in order for something to be called. Science is a very broad term, an umbrella term for any
like any method
study of anything, essentially, that has used a verified system of observation, which is the scientific method.
Yeah.
And so that's what he believes he has a mastering of within that field of that particular set of tools used for that type of science. But it doesn't necessarily apply. But anyways, so he talks about, because he has this credential, why people should believe him about other fields of science. Because he'll claim that the tools, because every scientist understands the tools, the main ingredients, the scientific method, what makes something science are those things, those steps, specific steps that you have to use in no matter what you're studying. And so the only thing he can do as a PhD or a scientist is critique the way they use those steps.
But not actually use them himself.
To study what they're talking about to prove them wrong or prove them right. He just only verbally attacks their methodology.
So he's just passing judgment on what other people are trying to prove.
Without himself being an expert in that field.
And without himself actually proving it.
And so because he has his PhD, and he understands science, quote unquote science, I use the air quotes, may possibly unnecessarily. In any event, there's massive amounts of very ignorant people that take his word for it, and they say, this guy knows what he's talking about. Now I'm validated and not believing in global warming. And fuck the liberal Democrats to try to tell me that I gotta, that we gotta do something about it.
I don't want to fucking recycle. Fuck that. Fuck recycling.
And so, yeah. To bring it all back, anyways, Trump is appealing to all those people, but there's also people on a lower level that we don't necessarily hear about, like these guys that I'm talking about, that are really affecting things that people believe in society.
Yeah, because it's a repetition. Also, if these people are listening to these guys on a regular basis and they're getting that reinforced often, they're gonna go with that. Well, and so there's cognitive dissonance there for people that don't necessarily believe what these people will be saying. So cognitive dissonance is when you have two opposing beliefs. And obviously there's two options there. You're either going to take the new belief, what you hear, and make that fact, and that's now what you believe, or you're going to hold on to your old belief and you're going to rationalize why you're holding on to it. So essentially we can rationalize anything, right? We can rationalize anything. So these people are going to hear these guys talk and say things, and maybe they themselves don't necessarily think that's right. Whenever they're talking about politics, but that uncomfortable feeling of cognitive dissonance makes them choose. Do I take the new belief, or do I just defend my belief? And some people, I think, that are weak-minded are just going to take the new belief and not defend their belief, or use the tools that they have to really critically think about which one they want to choose, because people don't like to be in that uncomfortable space. Like cognitive dissonance, both beliefs can't live in the same place for very long, right?
Right.
So I think a lot of that's working against us in this case, because people are just taking what they hear as fact if it sounds good. And if they already don't have a pre-existing belief about it, and somebody's giving it to them, now they have a pre-existing belief. They're not going to get that cognitive dissonance to choose again until somebody challenges it. And if nobody's challenging their beliefs and they're hanging out with the same people, listening to the same programs, watching the same things repeatedly, that's going to be their core belief. And it's going to be way harder to make them feel uncomfortable so they can change it once they can rationalize it a shit ton. Because that's what you do when you're faced with two opposing beliefs. You either rationalize the shit out of what you're doing. So like, when you have a piece of pizza in front of you, you're not supposed to be eating pizza, and then you're like, but I worked out today. I'm gonna have that piece of pizza.
Ooh,
you could have rationalized it the opposite way. Like, I worked out today, I'm not gonna have that piece of pizza. But most of the time, whatever's more pleasurable, whatever's easier, whatever's like appealing at the moment.
That's a whole other topic of conversation that we will cover, and that has to deal with
pizza?
No, yes, it does have to do with pizza in a way.
It's a whole show.
In a roundabout way, but it has to deal with cognitive function. It has to deal with the physiology of the brain.
Okay.
And we'll talk about that, and it's fantastic.
It's really interesting how the mind works.
But I want to get back to that's true. I want to get back to the point that you just brought up, which is 100% true about how people have to rationalize that cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
And what I truly believe is that those people on that radio are hurting people, because I believe at least one of them for sure doesn't. I believe he's atheist. I believe he doesn't even actually believe in God, but he's figured out a method to appeal to that very aspect of the human condition in most people that aren't intelligent enough to be able to break themselves from that cycle.
Well, it's human nature too. Like, we are emotional beings, and faith and belief, and
I shouldn't actually even say, sorry to interrupt you again, sorry, but I have to be more clear and specific. There is leading to that other conversation that we're going to have about the physiology of the brain, there is also there's a reason of why it is very difficult to change your beliefs, because within your brain, there's neural pathways that are physically existing in your brain pathways that are set. And this is why it's so hard to break from those beliefs that you were taught since you were a child, such as religion.
And even habits.
And
like
so
religion can be a habit,
I
too.
should phrase what I said earlier about people not being intelligent because they can't break from that cycle. The intelligence doesn't necessarily have anything to do with it. It has to do with within that physiology of the brain, the neurological pathways that are established since they were a kid, being hard to overtake with new neurological pathways within your brain.
It takes a lot of work, and it's the path of least resistance. We're made to survive. We're made to survive. We're not made to make ourselves struggle, right? It is the path of least resistance. And you know what? That's going to lead us into a different topic, which we will talk about in depth, probably on many episodes, but psychedelics. So psychedelics, when you take mushrooms or acid or ayahuasca or DMT, they've done these MRIs, right, on people to see what their brain is doing when they're on these drugs, and they've seen parts of people's brains talk that don't normally talk, right? So that's creating new pathways. So a lot of times, this is like an actual therapy. People use psychedelic therapy, like really low doses of acid can help with depression. Or what is the active ingredient in mushrooms?
Psilocybin.
Psilocybin. Like psilocybin's been getting a lot of tests done for depression and like OCD, those types of disorders. So I feel like that is a way to break that. I actually suggested to my parents, of all people, that we should do some ayahuasca, just because I feel like old school people, like people that are very set in their ways. So my parents are pretty awesome anyways, or cool. They're pretty cool, but this was something that I was like, oh, I don't know how they're going to take that. But I feel like it can break people's cycles of things. And ayahuasca is called the strongest therapy on earth. That's like the nickname for it.
That you actually have to, like, do you understand what you have to undertake to do that? Like, to do that full treatment, you have to go down to Peru and go into the forest for like 2 weeks. And the whole time you're tripping balls on this stuff, and you have to actually cleanse yourself. They make you like starve yourself fast.
Yeah, you can't eat a lot of things. You can't like, I've read through the list, and I was just suggesting it to my parents just to be that kid that's like, hey,
to see how far they'll go.
They'll go. But psychedelics, a lot of people use them. I feel like psychedelics they've been popular since the 70s, 60s. The government's done so many tests on them because they do have an effect on how your brain works, right?
Yeah. It's interesting that what they're, I think, theorizing now, and don't quote me on this is, I think, speculation based on things that I believe I've heard in the past, that they believe that is what's going on with people that have autism, that parts of their brain are communicating that don't normally communicate.
No way.
And that's why they are not able to function on the same kind of level that other people are. Some of them, sometimes they function really high.
Yeah, on a higher level than other people.
Because of aspects of their brain that are not typically communicating with each other. They are communicating with each other permanently, essentially. Why they can become like piano savants
but not have social skills.
Exactly.
What?
It's fascinating.
That is really fascinating. I'm interested in the psychedelics thing. I think I think that research is valuable. I think research on cannabis is valuable. I think that So we had a speaker come into Beta Blocks last Thursday, right? And she was telling us about her product, and her product is awesome. It gives you, it's like essentially like a 5-hour energy shot, because she used to work for 5-hour energy.
Is that the drink?
Yeah, the drink, 5-hour energy, right?
The one that you have to shake and everything?
It's a little shot. It's like an ounce, but this shot is to give you half your day's fruits and vegetables. It's real sleek. It's real small. It's delicious. But the basis for what they did, how they made this product, was what USDA, what the USDA says that people should have as fruits and vegetables, right? So this is a government based decision on their product for what they recommend, but I don't know where I'm getting to at this point. But I guess what I'm saying is people are taking these rules, laws, suggestions of the government and basing how they live off of it, right? So the government is saying we did tests on LSD and LSD is bad. Now people don't want to use LSD. They don't want to use cannabis. But tobacco is good. Tobacco is legal, and you can buy it, so it's a good thing. Not everything that's illegal is bad, and not everything that is good
is legal.
Yeah.
It's probably not exactly what you would say. But, okay, so what specifically is your point?
I don't know what my
regarding,
point is
so
there.
you brought up the Beta Blocks lady.
Oh.
She's showing you this.
So what I'm saying is that's why I'm so interested in the psychedelic research, like what they're doing with it, just because I wish they would do more research on this stuff. Nobody's funding it, right? Because the government has a hold on these Schedule 1, Schedule 2 drugs. But I think they could really help. I mean, for breaking habits, for breaking addiction, these things can be used, but they're not mainstream yet. And
Right.
it's all based off of what the government has made a standard. So to go back, this lady that came in and had this fruit shot, I just kept thinking well, why is it that much fruit? You could have more fruit, or you could have less fruit. That's the recommended daily serving.
Recommended minimum daily serving.
Yeah, recommended
You could, of course,
minimum.
have as much as you want.
Yeah, but also people have been, the ketogenic diet is a big thing right now. So there's a bunch of different ways to live life and have,
Yeah, but it is true to a certain extent that there is a minimum amount of nutrients that your body needs on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And fruits have some of that. And so they, explain that to you in that. But you're right. There's this element of, okay, why is she doing this? First of all, why, back to the Beta Blocks thing, why is she doing this based off of just what the government is saying? Why does she trust the government?
Yeah.
Well, the reason is so for her business to be legitimate, she wants to just play within the lines and play it safe. So she's saying, this is what the government, she's should theoretically never get in trouble with the government for any ingredients or labeling or things like that, because she's making it a part of her marketing, as a matter of fact,
Yeah,
and her
she is.
packaging to let the government know that she's on their side and showing exactly what the government is telling you. So I think that's almost a business decision to go that way.
Well, it is, because it gives her legitimacy, because yeah.
Exactly. And so then there's the aspect of okay, so then we take it a little bit deeper. So she believes that, and it's okay, that's a random and seemingly random and odd way of doing business.
Yeah.
So then it brings the next question of why even is the government saying these things? But there's an even deeper, I might say, an economic explanation for how and why the government is saying things that may not even be presently true, because they're intricately involved in complexity and what in economics they call policy lag time. There's so much basically bureaucracy and red tape that it could take years,
To get something done or changed?
To get something changed.
Oh my God.
A policy or something changed based off of what we know as current good science. which actually plays back into my earlier conversation about how science plays such a role in the effect, such a role in the dynamic of how our government runs based off of the role of the dynamic of religion in our society. And it's all so crazy intrinsically tied together. But the government when we were probably out of high school, maybe 10 years ago, the government changed the food pyramid. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that. What did they...
They changed it. It's all vertical segments now. It's not...
Nope.
Remember how it was like stacked
It was
up?
like big building blocks?
Yeah. That was like 10 years ago. Where you been at?
Food pyramid. I probably don't remember what it looked like before that. No, I didn't know that. They changed it to this?
Yep, exactly.
What the heck? I don't know if I like that.
Well, it's not whether you like it or not. It's what they did. But, and they changed the amounts of each thing that you're supposed to have. You know, because they finally realized that the science from 1975 was correct.
The research we've been doing for the past 20 years.
But now we know differently. Now we know about ketogenic diets, and now we know about vegan diets, and now we know about all these different things. It's going to take another 20 years for the government to...
What did you call it? Policy lag?
Policy lag.
Oh my gosh, I'm writing that down. That's an interesting subject.
So you can't always trust what the government is doing, and you can't assume that what she's choosing to do as a business decision is based off of assuming that the government is correct in their assessment.
So that's crazy for people that base any decision off those things. They get some cognitive dissonance when these things are changed, and but there's another thing right there. The government, if they change something, it's legit, isn't it? Like the cognitive dissonance is probably a little bit stronger because that person is like, wow, that's what I've thought for the past 20 years, and now they're changing it all of a sudden. But the government said it. Like that gives it some. That makes
form of legitimacy.
Some form of legitimacy that we then equate to another ultimate truth. Oh, you're gonna probably go,
I have to go right now. I'm really sorry.
That's okay. We'll pause.
In fact, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm really sorry I had to leave a little bit early this evening.
Yeah, that was a hell of a conversation. But guys, we always have good conversations here. We're always trying to talk about something really interesting.
And you're always welcome to check us out and participate and send us your ideas, your questions, your comments, your concerns. Check us out. We're at therelenials@gmail.com, as well as
our Twitter handle is @therelenials. So hit us up.
The website is coming soon, as well as our audio plugin, so you'll be able to check us out directly from the website. Stay tuned for that. And thanks again for checking us out. The Realennials signing off. Patrick signing off here.
Ruby is saying bye to ya. We'll see you around sometime.
All right, later.
All right, bye.